Have you ever bought a new outfit like a skirt, a shirt or a jacket, only to come home and realize that none of your old stuff matches with it? Or a new dresser that looks so great in the store, but now it just makes everything in the bedroom look old and worn. So before you know it, you buy new shoes and new jewelry to match that dress, or you buy a new lamp and a wooden box in the same style as the dresser. This literally happened to me when I bought a new sofa last year to replace my old one. After I assembled that sofa, the rest of my living room looked pale and uninviting. So I painted the walls, bought a matching rug and a coffee table. I put up these shelves on the wall with the 2 picture frames. And to be fair, I had decluttered a lot of possessions and didn't have a rug or a coffee table before. But still, my original plan was to replace my sofa, and it led to me buying a bunch of other stuff that wasn't on my list at first. This is called the Diderot effect. The Diderot effect. It's this idea that obtaining a new possession will often create a spiral of consumption. We acquire more new things, all with the unspoken goal of trying to find balance and to create unity. It's named after Denis Diderot, a French philosopher who lived in the 18th century. He'd been poor for most of his life until Lady Luck shone on him. When his daughter was about to be married, he couldn't afford to provide a dowry. But as it turns out, he was the author of a famous encyclopedia, and apparently Catherine the Great, the Empress of Russia, was a fan. And when she heard of Diderot's financial troubles, she offered to buy his library for £1,000, which would be around $60,000 today. Suddenly, Diderot was rich. After paying the dowry, he bought a new scarlet robe. It was beautiful, felt soft, comfortable, luxurious, and it was the beginning of the end. He wrote about it in his essay, Regrets for My Old Dressing Gown. The new robe disrupted the unity in his living space. He wrote, My old robe was one with the other rags that surrounded me. All is now discordant. No more coordination, no more unity, no more beauty. So he went on a shopping spree. He replaced the straw chair with a leather one, a large mirror took over the mantle of his fireplace, he bought an expensive new clock, new art, a new writing desk. And after he spent all his money and some more, he wrote, With time all debts will be paid, remorse will be calmed, and I will have pure joy. But this probably sounded the least convincing to himself, because he also concluded, I was the absolute master of my old robe. I have become the slave of the new one. How the Diderot effect affects you. Diderot lived centuries ago, but we can fall prey to the same trap today. Just look around your living space. Did you really need everything you bought? I know I didn't. But the shiny object syndrome makes us buy things we think we want in the moment. And that often leads to more spending for matching products. Companies exploit this human tendency to sell you more stuff. When you buy an iPhone, it's now more tempting to also get a MacBook. It's the same Apple ecosystem. You can airdrop files, take phone calls on your laptop. It all works so well together. And when you visit IKEA, they have these complete rooms set up in a certain style. You came to buy a new chair, but in that room it's next to a matching sofa, a coffee table, a rug and decorations, and together they represent a whole new identity or lifestyle, which makes it more tempting to buy these other things as well. IKEA even sells products in branded groups. So you like the mom desks, but when you come home, it doesn't match with the rest of your things. But hey, IKEA also has a mom bed frame, mom chest of drawers. You can even pick your favorite color. Maybe you should go back to IKEA. I have this issue at home. I now have this modern looking corner with my new sofa and rug, but my desk is just the old dining table that came with the apartment I rent, which doesn't really match. It's not mine, so I can't replace it, which is probably a good thing, because it stops me from spending money. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the Diderot effect playing out, this human need of trying to find unity in our possessions. And, by extension, trying to convince ourselves that our identity itself is uniform. So how can you stop yourself from buying things you don't need? And master the Diderot effect. How to overcome the Diderot effect. Catch yourself when it's happening. Years ago, I did a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. And one thing I learned there was that everything in life is impermanent. Feelings come and go, like water flowing in a river, without me having to do anything about it. I found this to be very helpful when a strong emotion like anger arises. If I'm lucid, aware of what's happening in a moment, I can catch myself before it's too late and say, oh, this is anger. Let me see how long it will last. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but it's a very helpful technique. You can do the same with the Diderot effect. Now that you know how it works, you can catch yourself when you notice you're comparing the rest of your clothes or the furnishing in your living space with this new item you bought, and you feel the urge to upgrade everything else. By saying, oh, this is the Diderot effect, you can snap yourself out of it. And another thing you could do is hit the subscribe button. It's less effective, but might temporarily distract you. Reduce consumption triggers. One way to avoid falling into the trap of spiraling consumption is to reduce your exposure to consumption triggers. When I was a lawyer, I would often just go into the city on the weekend and check out shops as a way to relax and pass the time. Years later, after having lived on a low budget in Thailand for quite a while, I was back home, walking around the city, thinking to myself, oh yeah, this is what people do. They go shopping in the weekend. I'd almost forgotten about it. If you want to lose weight, don't go to McDonald's. Similarly, if you're tired of coming home with more items than you intended to buy, avoid the mall for a while. Hang out at a park instead. And make your phone minimal. I've recently did an app declutter on my phone and only kept the apps I use on a daily basis, like Slack, Spotify, Gmail, Notion, Google Maps. I've removed all social media. I don't even have the YouTube Studio app on my phone. Which, I know, that's weird since I'm a YouTuber, but I was checking my analytics way too often for no reason. I can still access it on my laptop if I want to. So you can do the same to reduce triggers that make you want to spend money. Remove shopping apps from your phone and unfollow brands and influencers on social media that make you want to shop. Do you really need this new item? When you're considering buying a new thing, first ask yourself, why do I feel drawn to purchasing it? Do I really need it? Or can you perhaps get it secondhand? If it's to replace something you already own, what's wrong with what you have? Do you want to replace it because it doesn't match with this other new thing you just bought? One thing the Diderot effect teaches us is that often our identity is tied up in the things we own. And by trying to find unity in our possessions, we're really trying to convince ourselves that our identity itself is uniform. But your possessions do not define you. Your life is too valuable to waste chasing material possessions. Buy items that match with what you already have. One thing that got Diderot into trouble is that his new robe didn't match with what he already owned. And that caused him to buy a new desk, new art, a new chair. So if after careful consideration you decide that you indeed want to go ahead with your purchase, it can really help to buy something that fits in with what you already own. That way, your new pants, your new coffee table, or whatever it is, it won't be a dissonant, but will blend right in. Choose usefulness over status. When buying something new, carefully consider why you're buying it. Is it for its usefulness? Or are you really buying it in the hope of feeling like that model who posted it on Instagram? This is what happened to Diderot. His new gown had promised security and freedom, but in the end, it trapped him. Now, I no longer spend money on branded clothes. I can't be bothered. This pullover is fine to me. I do have an expensive MacBook Pro, which I even upgraded with more memory, extra storage space, and a faster processor. But even though it cost me an arm and a leg, I bought it for its usefulness, not to join the club of Apple fanboys. I'm used to macOS and I edit my videos in Final Cut Pro X, which I love. And with my last laptop, I kept hitting a wall because I was trying to make it do things it wasn't built for. And it was frustrating. This time I decided to spend the money and get a beast of a machine. But the way I see it, a carpenter needs a good hammer, because it's how he makes his living, and it's a tool he uses every single day. I found that if I spend money on something of high quality, I never think about the money afterward anymore. But if I've been cheap, there will be many days filled with frustration about why I went for the lower quality option. But with that said, I have friends on Windows computers and I'll be the last person to tell them to switch to Apple if they don't need it. You often get really good performance for a lot less money on those machines, and they don't have to deal with the stupid design choice of only including USB-C ports, so you have to carry a dongle around everywhere you go. Luckily, those days are over now with the new MacBooks, but it was a frustration of mine for years. So when you're considering a new purchase, ask yourself, will this be useful? Or do I want to get it mostly because I'm hoping others will think more highly of me when they see me with it? Stick to a budget and don't buy on credit. In Europe, where I'm from, people don't often buy on credit. Most people don't even have a credit card, or when they do, it's to pay for flight tickets or rent a car abroad. But if you live in the US though, it's very easy to rack up credit card debt with high interest rates. Denis Diderot, even though he got a bunch of money from selling his library to the emperors of Russia, eventually spent more than he had and ended up in debt. So a good rule of thumb is to only buy new things you can actually afford and to not buy them on credit. Then set a budget and stick to it. This way, when you're tempted to buy something on an impulse, an item you may think you need in the moment, you've put a hard stop on it if it exceeds your budget. Then, when you've analyzed and predicted the full cost of that item and you still want to go ahead with it, you can now budget for it. This will keep you out of financial trouble. Another thing that can happen when you buy things you don't need is that all these things don't just sit there idly. They have needs, they want to be cared for. The TV wants you to continue watching Curb Your Enthusiasm on HBO, the dishes want to be cleaned, the lampshades want to be dusted. Fumio Sasaki calls this the silent to-do list in his book Goodbye Things. I made a video about it called A Minimalist Secret, Your Stuff is Talking to You, which you can watch right here. Hopefully this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care and bye.